Dropped from out the clouds, had to change form. Flooded the plains, had them praying for my brainstorms. I'm a master, peace from divine. A worker, I got a bit of mob trying to frame John. I'm heir to whenever a conflict, with a postcode drawn to the pros and the cons split. Professionals, been Robin Hoods with a pamphlet. Gave to the poor and the black, the stigmata of convict. To the cross we bear is too familiar. Embedded in the home of the brave, the darkest of interiors. So street scholars and soldiers defect, cause they post-traumatic stress on their American experience. Go all in, I'm finna go all in. Murk every line came before this delivery, make orphans. See my heart bleed from the hardship of my origins. My great-grand sold for a band at Southern auctions. It's a razor edge of my cadence that's shredded through these paper trails. Only alphabet boys I trust is inner Y and L. Only alchemy justify the nuggets I expel. In the city idol trying to be the next idol whales rock.
I don't know what you might have heard, but we ain't going nowhere. What up? Got a whole squad dressed in all black, got the streets on notice. What up? They want us in the same place, ain't nobody ever gonna really change nothing but us. Hello, this is revolution, get on up.
Born queen with a street type of etiquette. That's why I rule over every subject and predicate. Scrawl these searing indictments on every edifice. And balls on my holy cabal, the only evidence left. Excuse the venom in my rap tone, cause more often it's sweet like served vinegar in black homes. More specifically with fire lit them crack stones. War on drugs turn a fiend of fella in the snap gone. Inspired I am my diatribe, cause polished lies try and tell us that Shabazz is the diatribe. So I'ma turn this pen and tab into a tabernacle, so them jeans can't distinguish God from me. I and I spit the 12 jewels of freedom from the 13. This a clear view like baby seeing from the first blink. They can buy the spirit from my nation, cut the purse strings. Gene pool of savage ancestors was the first link. Guarantee we finna recoup. Something recover, got name gold on the molars of every tooth. We buying back the blocks like Wall Street pursuit. We failed couple of times, the rise absolute trust.
I don't know what you might have heard, but we ain't going nowhere. But got a whole squad dressed in all black, got the streets on notice. What up? They want us in the same place, ain't nobody ever gonna really change nothing but us. Hello, this is revolution, get on up. I don't know what you might have heard, but we ain't going nowhere. But got a whole squad dressed in all black, got the streets on notice. What up? They want us in the same place, ain't nobody ever gonna really change nothing but us. Hello, this is revolution, get on up.
All right. Peace, everybody. It is a guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business of Benefits. We had to have some fun there with Ciroc. If you haven't heard of her, she's an excellent female rapper, and I wanted to play that song Revolution because Kizzy is going to help us have a revolution with government contracts. So, Kizzy, for the people that don't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Definitely revolution with government contracting. My name is Kizzy Parks, and I own 3 government contracting firms and have been awarded over $50 million in government contracts. And I've been in this business for over 10 years. So I'm really excited to share.
50 million with an M. It's going to be billion soon. But Kizzy, I met you through Shanae Murray. She's a friend of both of ours and senior content out there. So yes. Government contracts is an elusive space. And before we get too deep into that, I want to say thank you to #Team Live, #Team Replay. However you consume the content, please let us know below in the comments. And thank you to YouTube, thank you to LinkedIn, and our sponsor StreamYard for the show. So I did a poll before the show about government contracts and how often people go for them. And overwhelmingly, most people said they never do it. So for you to get into that space for government contracts, were you a government employee before? Kind of give the backstory for why you decided to focus on government contracts.
That's a great question because many people believe you have to work for the government. You have to be a vet or your partner or family member is a vet. or that you somehow are connected to the federal government, somehow. And pretty much, really none of that was true. I was a graduate student at Florida Institute of Technology. Patrick, now Space Force, opened up an opportunity to serve as a graduate research fellow. So my last about year, little less than a year in my PhD program, I was physically at Patrick providing different analytic and other type of services. And at the end, right before I earned my PhD, I was asked if I would stay on as a subcontractor. And so that's where the opportunity led itself. And here's something that's important. For some, they would have, some others did something like that and then they ended up in other places. I took that and went and took the rocket ship approach. So I took that opportunity and I said, I'll do this, but I'm going to grow a business. I didn't expect to have a business directly, like right before I earned my PhD. And so that's where I really differentiated and where all of this knowledge and experience comes in, because I really started at zero once I received that first subcontract.
Okay, perfect. And that first contract, would you say it happened methodically or was totally an accident and you just kind of fell through it?
It was totally an accident for where I was, but now reflecting, and I know the person who offered me the contract. I consider him a mentor. Basically, I was providing value.
Mm-hmm.
I provided value around data analytics. I provided value around research. And they also knew that they had opportunities around diversity and inclusion. And at that point in time, that was my wheelhouse. And that's where I really started to grow my expertise.
So let's break this down. When you hear government contracts, that's a very general term. What is the government? When somebody says, I want to work with the government, what levels are we talking about so people kind of better understand how close or how far away the opportunity is? Because I think that for me, I work with some municipalities and things of that nature, which are local. But some people think, well, federal is the only way or local is the only way. So what is government contracts when you think of it that way?
From my lens, because most of our work has been the federal government or Department of Defense. When I hear government, I typically think in terms of that. But globally, I think it's not a private entity. So it could be state, it could be local, it could be county. It's just those aren't my big area of expertise. So when people come to me or people say like, I want a government contract, my cousin has a government contract, or I work for the government and we're always awarding government contracts, it's massive. The federal government spends over $500 billion a year. So there's a lot of opportunities and it's like overwhelming. It's like, imagine your biggest superstore that you have where you live. And then, you know what, I have a better example. It's like an Amazon warehouse. That's what it's like. It's like if they just threw you in an Amazon warehouse and said, okay, go find these four items and come back. You would be like, what am I doing? How am I going to do that? That's how government contracting is, because they buy so much. They buy cups and they buy technology and they pay for people. They pay for weapons. They pay for training. There's so many things that the federal government buys. And I think, again, most people are unaware of that.
Yeah, and I don't want to be unaware of the audience real quick. I want to catch up with the audience. I'm going to say thank you to Misha Mibane jumping in here saying, all right now. We had Vaughn Greta saying good afternoon. Thanks for jumping in, Vaughn. And then we also had Diana Parker representing from Florida Like You. She's in Tampa, Florida Team Live. Looking forward to the session. She told me to kiss my baby, so thank you for saying that, Diana. And we had Arama representing from New York. Thank you for representing, Queen. So you said something interesting about they buy so much stuff. And I know the premise of this was talking about service-based business. Because I know sometimes people think, well, I'm a service, so I don't have a good to sell to the government. So are service-based businesses a good fit for the government as well?
They're an excellent fit. That's how I started out. My service was me. It was just me. And then I brought on an undergrad intern. And what I discovered initially, I was like, oh, wow, they pay for someone to speak for the different months, like the Women's History Month. I was like, oh, wow. So I did that and was paid. I found out that agencies wanted very detailed, intense training, and that's a service. So the interesting thing about the federal government is that many of the big companies, the way that they make their continuous revenue is through, which I'm just going to use the generic term, which is staffing. So through the staffing, the person is providing the service, whatever it may be. It could be firefighters. Firefighters fall under FEMA. That's a federal contract. It could be an admin position. It could be an engineer. It could be a doctor. I even bid on a part-time pharmacist for the Bureau of Prisons once. I mean, I did. It really runs the gamut. So yes, there's a place for you when it comes to services. There's tons of services out there that you can really explore. It's really about what are you interested in offering? That's the most important question. What are you interested in offering, and what business model do you want? Because there are certain contracts where you can bring in revenue for 5 years, and then there's others, no different than the commercial side, where it's exchange. You provided X service, you invoice, and now you're moving on to your next client or to the prospect. So those are things to ask oneself.
And as you mentioned that, what do you want to get into? Somebody commented on the thing leading up to the show about the RFP process, basically saying it was a pain for him, that he tried, maybe he didn't allude to a whole lot, but it seemed like he had tried it and the RFP process was an issue. So I've dealt with RFPs for a couple of things, and my mind says, like, if you're at the RFP late, you're probably not going to get it. That's my vantage point there from benefits. So for people that want to get into this, is it always an RFP, or are there several other entry points they can go through?
There's lots of other entry points. And I also want to say, because I just noticed Misha, she said, what about mindset training? Yes, they buy all kinds of training. Mindset, we've provided health and wellness, we've provided diversity, we've provided anti-stress, we provided resume writing, we've provided leading from the middle manager one. I mean, I have like a catalog course, a 2 catalog PDF of all these courses. So to answer your question, when it comes to the federal government, there's usually going to be something like typed, right? Sometimes they want like physical paper, but there's going to be this thing that you're going to write, and you're going to outline what you're going to do for them, or maybe you even put it in a PowerPoint. Now, as far as, are you too late? How do you get involved? Am I going to be successful? Why should I even try? So a lot of those questions can be answered based on the agency as well as what the opportunity entails. Okay. So if a government agency has a need for mindset training, maybe one training, and they're going to pay for it using a credit card, the barrier to entry isn't that big. It could be that you called an agency and you found out they need this training. Bam, there you go. You probably don't even really have to write much of. Now, if we're talking about a multi-million-dollar or $500 million opportunity, that's way, way, way different. So it varies on those types of factors. And then also, the other also is, in the federal government, they have what's called evaluation criteria. There have been ample times where we bid, maybe last minute, I say, why not? And we won. Because of the evaluation criteria. When I've looked at them and made the decision, okay, it's lowest cost. You know what? I think I'll be able to bid on that and potentially win. Or maybe the evaluation criteria has to do with who you worked with in the past. So the thing is, there's different approaches that you have to take. There isn't one approach. There isn't, one template. I always take different approaches when it comes to federal agencies.
Yeah, and that's a good. Misha also even asked that's on state, local, and federal level. So that's where I think people always think it's a mega deal, but there's probably a ton of small deals that are out there you just don't pay attention to. I'm guessing on the state level.
Yeah, and I think it's just how we are as human beings, right? We pay attention to the bright and shiny, the superstar of the team, the superstar singer, the superstar athlete. I mean, superstar whomever. And the thing is, there are numerous opportunities that may be under $100,000. So
Mm,
you have 10 of those, that's $1 million,
yeah.
but they may not be glamorous. It may be for, like, I saw an opportunity. They literally wanted a person to train army horses different movements.
Okay. Well, somebody does that. That's why it's out there. It wouldn't be a bid if they're like, we don't have anybody in house, so find a guy that can train our horse movements. But that's where I
Right.
think people miss it up. I think it's like when you think about War Dogs, with that movie with Jonah Hill about selling munitions and selling guns and weapons, and people think, oh, that's all you can do. But how accurate was that depiction of that movie? Aside from the sensationalism, how accurate was that? Going on there, there's a website, I can see bids and just throw something on there.
Super. All of
Okay.
that. I mean, I watched it recently and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I was like, yeah, it's a
So
lot like that.
So if you guys haven't seen War Dogs and want like a little peek in a comic way into government contracts, it's a funny movie and interesting. But I saw them, was like, man, it's that simple to a degree, but you still got to have your credentials. I mean, you can't just come up there half stepping. So when you're bidding on these jobs that are out there, how fierce is the competition? Is it some of them you're the 50th person, or some of them you're really the only one doing it?
It really depends. It honestly depends. Like, one opportunity we won for an exercise physiologist, there was an incumbent who
Mm-hmm.
had to work for, I think, for 5 years. And I took a strategic approach and we won. I don't know how many people bid. I know there were more than two.
Okay.
Um, there have been times where maybe there's 10, maybe there's 15. I've bid on things where there were only two of us. One interesting piece about the federal government is you can request what's called a debrief, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll give you feedback that you can then decide, what you would like to do with it. But often they'll tell you how many people bid. And honestly, it really varies. So if it's something that you're interested in, it's not going to take a ton of time and resources for you to, throw your hat in. Why not? Why not bid on it? As long as you're going to make some money. Because the other thing with with government contracting is pricing becomes a factor, and there are firms that typically will make 1 to maybe 3% profit. And
Mm-hmm.
so, or vice versa. There could be, I know on the training side, there's some opportunities we can't bid on because if a solopreneur can charge $700 for an entire day's worth of training, I can't compete with that.
Ah,
But if that solopreneur is amazing and they're the only person, $700 a day, that really adds up.
right. Well, a question as you were saying that made me think about it was going through that process. The debrief's valuable. I mean, in private commerce, you don't have that. You can't go ask somebody like, "Hey, why didn't I get the bid? Why didn't I win the deal? Why didn't you go with me?" So, have you seen that be a very valuable part of your sales process? Is actually finding out why we didn't win and kind of tweaking it to make it more refined after that.
Definitely. I remember one agency basically said something like, we want more detail around how you're going to provide a certain training. And I thought, okay, that's fair. And then another agency, they wanted more around, I don't know if it was our staffing approach. There was something that they wanted. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you also have to take in consideration, while it's helpful, I always have to go back to what were the evaluation criteria, and then there's unknowns. Like, I don't know if maybe they knew or they wanted certain vendors So then it's easy to say, well, you didn't do this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
Right, as a way to validate a decision. So it helps, but I also keep in mind that, hey, I didn't win that one, but there have been many when I've won. And I just go with it. I take the feedback, and I'm really appreciative of it.
And this is an interesting angle that a lot of people ask, are we recording this, to kind of go back, because when was it for you became this is a business? Because obviously government contracts are out there, but people don't always look for them. So what was the moment that made you say, I got to teach people how to do this or make a agency out of it?
It was like during COVID, and when I really started going on Clubhouse. So I started going on Clubhouse right after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I came across all these government contractors. So I came across like those who work for the federal government and have positions where they would primarily interface with a government contractor like myself. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Then I came across all of these like experts and government contractors, and I was listening to their language, and it didn't fit. I'm like, they're not talking like government contractors. They were talking at a whole different way, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. And then I would start looking them up, and I realized that many of them like don't have contracts, or I don't know, maybe they work for the government or something. And it just really concerned me, because I thought, wow, people are not only spending money on their services, but maybe they're taking what they've shared on Clubhouse and are running with it, when in reality, that's just part of the story. And so I thought, you know what, I really want to start GovCon Winners to really help people learn how to find, bid, and win profitable contracts. Because, I mean, I've been there, I've done it, I've learned throughout these years, it's not easy. And many people go through the process and they get set up and they get all the set asides and they're excited, and then they never win a contract.
And I think it's good you mentioned something earlier that I want to make sure we focus on, the profit margin you mentioned. Private commerce obviously has a wide range of profit margins, but government isn't that way all the time, because obviously it's spending taxpayer money, so they're not going to throw every bit of money. When you hear $500 billion, people think, oh, they're going to spend whatever I ask, but the margins are different. So what should people expect when they decide, I want to go in that arena? What should they expect, and why is that good compared to what they're used to in the private commerce area?
The bottom line is you have to really work backwards and look at what you need. So often what people will do in government contracting is they figure out how much all of their expenses are, what they need as profit, what they need to cover general and administrative. They figure that out. So let's kind of put that aside, because that's kind of at a second level. So just bare bones, you're looking to get in the federal government. What's important is, does it feel right for you, and is it competitive? And you may think, like, how in the heck am I even going to know that? So GSA, the GSA schedule is available online, and you can pull up a PDF that outlines different companies, how much they charge the federal government, hourly or for a training. So that will help you understand what the government is looking to spend. Then you have to decide, is this something that you will accept? So like, for instance, if you have an idea that an agency is going to pay you $2,000 a day for training, and you say, no, I'm not going to take that, I'm used to making $15,000 per training, then that's the decision to make. But then the flip side is, the government has long-term contracts that you can have for 5 years, where you have revenue coming in every month for 5 years. So maybe in that situation, you're more comfortable with the numbers. Maybe your profit isn't the same as in private sector, but it works out because you have this guaranteed work for 5 years. And that's one of the greatest benefits, and I think a biggest differentiator between federal government work and the other sectors. is that not only you have that longevity, but you can also grow the work too.
Yeah, 'cause I'm sure it's a lot of, who knows who at that point. Because my father actually had a comment on here. Have you found that there's a bit of buddy system in contracting, and good and bad in that? I mean, the buddy might be you're only getting in if you're a friend of mine, but it also might be the flip side of, since you work with this, DOJ entity or this office, will work with you too. So do you see on both sides of the coin that it is who you know, but also that helps you get more business?
It is. I mean, I've had government agencies just straight tell me, like today, somebody told me, if you want to do work in Huntsville, Alabama, you really need to get in with the people there.
Mm.
That's what they said to me. And then that's a decision I have to make. We have advocates for some of our clients where they've shared our information. There have been times where we were requested because of our specialty. And then there are times where we're never going to get in because maybe that agency or department is really comfortable with their vendor. And so again, it's no different than commercial too, right? The CEO may really love vendor A, and that's who they're going to always work with because that's who the CEO loves. So, there's definitely some things that are just out there. People always have a preference.
But that's either way. I mean, the sustainability is the part I like that you mentioned. That yes, the margin that is high, but you might not have a client that's willing to pay you for 5 years at a time. So that pot of money can be used to kind of spread out, hire more people, whatever the case is. So what's like a success story you've seen for somebody that came from, they were used to getting a high profit, and not to say that you won't get a high profit with the government, but they were used to a higher profit, and then they got a government contract. What's some success stories or ROI you've seen for people to kind of get their head wrapped around that?
So what I've seen is, let's say for instance, let's say you're used to train, or actually here's an example. Let's say your wheelhouse is like accounting. You're like, I just want to do accounting. I did accounting. That's what I've done, right? Well, I mean, even at the state and local level, I don't really know if they're paying for accountants, but you know what they are paying for at the federal level? Staffing. New staffing positions, or staffing admin positions, or staffing record clerk 1. So I know of someone who had a background like that and then ended up staffing almost 10 positions, which is bringing them monthly revenue for an extended period of time. And so that's that shift is making you have to make that decision. Is it you want to be the one doing the work, or are you okay with, oh, I get it, I'm going to be staffing for these positions and I may not be doing necessarily the work? Or you could do both. There might be times where you're staffing kind of connected to your passion, and then there may be times when you're performing those services too. For instance, we're doing that with the Department of Transportation. We're working on this like 600-page research guide, and my team is working off-site to finalize that. And that's an effort a big government contractor used to have several years ago. Okay. So it relates to what we do. It's research, but it's completed off-site, and it will end once we turn in the deliverable.
Cool. So basically, there's a lot of ways to kind of skin the cat, as they say in the old cliches. But I think that's important to know, because when you have like a product, you might also be able to take that product and make it into a training, like you said. Like if you make a certain product, like the horse guy, teaching how to make a process or how to make a product is probably also a way. So when you think about, we're going through COVID still, a lot of issues going on with different areas of the U.S., what's probably your biggest takeaway from working with government contracts all this time? What's your biggest takeaway during COVID that's really been like a shiny spot for people to focus on, as far as, it's a new revenue stream, they've totally flipped their business to only go government? Like, what's a big takeaway you want people to have about government as they think about the rest of the year?
Number one, if the government pays you past 30 days, you get interest. That's number one. You will get paid. You don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I can't believe this well-known company that you can see everywhere didn't pay me for 4 months. I mean, that doesn't happen unless something happened on your end with invoicing. So the federal government always pays. Number two, with COVID, it really highlighted the importance of client relations. So while the federal government went virtual, they're still largely virtual.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to make all contract positions virtual. Mm-hmm. So what they could do, and they did, is they could say, you know what, Daryl, we know you have these positions, but we're going to stop the work at this point in time. So because of our client relations, we had a religious position, a Catholic youth coordinator, and they made her virtual during court. I mean, I thought that's amazing, you know, and we had other positions where there was nothing around virtual work in the contract, but because of our relationship with the client and our willingness to work with them, they said yes. So the other thing to think about is the importance of client relations. The third thing is, and this is important, so the government, you know, I don't know for any of you that are viewing or will watch the replay, but if you ever have had to go with somebody to get a government ID, or, you know, a loved one that had to go take care of something in person for a government agency, or maybe you know of someone where they have a cleaning business and they clean government buildings. Well, you can't do any of those things virtually.
Right.
So if you enter this space, think of diversifying. So even if cleaning is your wheelhouse, keep in mind, well, what happens if buildings don't need people to clean because people aren't reporting back to work? Yeah. So maybe you offer some other service in addition to cleaning. You know, it's okay. You could offer engineering services. It's fine. No, people aren't going to question you as much as you think they're going to question you, because the government also knows this is what big businesses do. They have a variety of products and services that they offer.
Yeah, I think that's good you mentioned that cleaning people, because that was like probably a big contract right when COVID first started. Like, oh, we want to have people back in the building and we don't have cleaning people. So it's probably in the middle now, I guess, because places are open or not returning back to work. But obviously you've pivoted well, making a business right now with this going on. So as people are deciding to get into government contracts, what would you say is should they start locally first? Should they start federally? What's the starting point, you think, for somebody to say, I'm going federal or I'm going government? Where's the best place to start?
The best place to start, it's going to, you know, maybe a little bit of a surprise. The best place to start is, can you pay your bills? Because it takes some time. And so I run across people who are like, I want to start now. That's awesome. And I'm all about it. But if you cannot pay your bills, you're going to come from a place of scarcity. So you need to make sure your bills are paid for, whether it's a side hustle or you have money saved, or you're going to do government contracting from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Number one, you need to make sure your bills are paid. Number two, I say you hit government, federal work, because state and local, there's a lot going on with state and local, and they have different requirements that you don't really have when it comes to federal government. And so when you go the federal government route, you can reach out to companies like mine to see, hey, could I do some work with you? Could we partner? So you don't always have to go out on your own, but it's important to make sure your bills are paid, pursue federal government opportunities. You know, it is like an Amazon warehouse, so it can be intense, but the rewards are, you know, they're huge. They're huge as far as what you can do and the impact that you can have on the different missions of the amazing federal government.
And there's nothing like working with a client that has a super black card, or whatever you're going to call it, with the government money that it's never going to bounce, it's never going to not pay through, so you never have to worry about, will they actually pay? And you dropped the bomb on me with the interest part. I had no idea about the interest part. So, folks, if you don't know, you should actually look in government contracts and catch up with the audience real quick. Yolanda Chen's team live. LinkedIn is acting crazy, so we appreciate the folks that can still see it. But YouTube, thank you as well. Kizzy, I know you have a new project that you just have about to come out now, so why don't you let people know about the new project you have coming out, as well as where they can get some great tips from you?
Yes. So because I'm so passionate about this space, and I just really want business owners, I want us to keep winning. I have come out with GovCon winners to help service-based small business owners learn how to win profitable government contracts. So it's an amazing live program with me where you're going to learn everything that you need to learn, and you will experience to find, to bid, and win government contracts. And so there's a link that will be shared. I have this awesome gift for you all about 7 mistakes to avoid. And also, I encourage you to please ping me on LinkedIn, and I can send it to you through LinkedIn too. It's also on my Instagram if you go to Kizzy M. Parks. And what's great about this program is, it works, is all I can say. It works in that it's what I do. I'm teaching you what I literally do to win contracts, to find them, how I engage with agencies. And so, if it's something of interest, you want to learn more, or if I can be of help, please contact me, because so many people throughout my journey have helped and continue to help me. And the least that I can do is just give back and be of help, because it is there's a lot there. There is a lot to government contracting, and I just want to help unpack it all.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, because right now people need any source of revenue they can find, because things are obviously different. So I want to thank everybody for watching this still. Team YouTube, Team LinkedIn, wherever you're watching this, we appreciate it. And as we get out of here, I want to remind people that next week is Professionally Black, next Wednesday at noon. We will be talking about the new Black Wall Street, kind of ways that we've learned money ourselves and things we can do to rebuild Black Wall Street, since it is Financial Awareness Month right now. So I appreciate you folks. Please tag someone who needs to hear this. If you know somebody that wants to get in government contracts, tried it and didn't do it right, have them hit up Kizzy, because she would teach you the right way to do it, and work with somebody that's here on LinkedIn. So you guys, will catch you next time. Please be safe. COVID-19 is not gone, obviously. So please be safe. Please still wear a mask, and we can get to some sense of normalcy soon. And we will catch you guys next time on Business with Benefits.
Yes.